Hello, everyone. This is Kim Miner with Tableau, and I welcome you today to our third webinar in our Financial Services webinar series. Today, we have a very robust agenda for you. We'll start with Greg Hayslip, who will provide a background on Tableau's presence in our financial services vertical, followed by several demonstrations. We're very pleased today to have our outstanding business partner, UserReady, on the phone, and today representing UserReady is their actual co-founder and CEO. So Uday is with us, and he'll take us through an asset performance monitor built for asset managers and wealth management professionals, and then he's actually going to show us a fund performance monitor used for fund analysis. Following Uday, you'll see Nick on the screen, and Nick will be taking us through a demonstration on how you can explore data and ask questions on the fly to make better decisions about portfolio performance and risk. So with that, Greg, would you like to get us started?
Absolutely. Thanks, Kim. This is Greg Hayslip. Thank you for all of you for attending our session today. I think we've got a very robust agenda for you today. Before we get started, though, I wanted to make everyone aware of a conference that we hold on an annual basis, the Tableau Conference. This year it's going to be out in Vegas. This is really our annual gathering of our customers and potential customers as well as partners to talk about what we do at Tableau, share a lot of learnings between each other. And this year, we expect to have about 15,000 attendees. And the reason I bring this up to this crowd is that we've got some fantastic customer speakers that are going to be sharing their journey with Tableau and the business advantage they're getting by leveraging the Tableau platform. Great time to collaborate, learn, get hands-on experience with the Tableau platform. This year, it's going to be October 9 through 12 in Vegas, so we hope to see you there. For further information, please go to tableau.com and search under PC and Financial Services. So let's move into our session today. Before we get started around the actual heavy content around asset and portfolio management, I think it's really important that this group understands what Tableau is all about. And other than having a fantastic analytics platform, really the key thing that we do in the marketplace today is we help people see and understand their data better. And the key word there is people, because we believe that data is a phenomenal asset for advantage in the financial services sector. However, people are really the engine that make that work. And our primary goal is to enable people to understand their business better, their risks better, and grow their top line, et cetera. So we want to make sure that people is always at the center of everything we do. If you think about our customers, you can see that our customers believe, just as we do, that people are the engine for growth and cost containment and market advantage. And we're so fortunate that approximately 93% of the Fortune 500 financial services clients that we work with leverage Tableau in a significant way. And today we're going to hear a couple of stories about how they're doing that. Both Uday and Nick are going to give some examples and show you some demonstrations as well. As we think about financial services at Tableau, we believe there's some primary areas that our customers are focused on, whether you're in the banking business, the insurance business, the money management business. There's four primary areas that we believe there's heavy focus. The first one is around making sure you're taking care of your customer and giving them what they need, providing innovation around your product set, or helping them invest appropriately. We also believe that helping to manage risk effectively is super important for all banks and financial services companies today, particularly on the heels of the debacle we had that started some almost 10 years ago. And the third piece is ensuring regulatory compliance is adhered to. I think everybody would agree that even though the regulatory environment has been tough over the last 8 to 10 years, it continues to get tougher and tougher, whether you're here in the U.S. or whether you're in an international scenario. And we want to help you cope with those challenges. And then lastly, I don't think there's a financial services client out there today that isn't looking at some way to reduce their cost base, become more efficient, and actually digitize a lot of their business processes. So Tableau can help in that area as well. So four key areas. Today's conversation is going to probably focus more on the part around customer insight, making sure you're taking care of customers, complying appropriately with the regulatory environment, and then third, how do we automate and make things more efficient for your particular organization and through business processes in asset management and portfolio management. And to give you a couple of examples of some of the work we're doing with our clients, I thought I'd share a couple of use cases and case studies that we've done work with a couple of our clients. This first one, Rosenblatt Securities. where one of their key goals as a provider of investment management services is to make sure that they're providing solid advice for their clients. And one of the things they were able to leverage with Tableau is looking at the performance of the market in the past, looking at different market sectors, economic indicators, et cetera, and they became very good at predicting and trying to understand what's going to happen in the marketplace going forward and provide that information to their advisors as well as their customers. And when they did that, they saw a significant impact in their ability to predict appropriately. So leveraging data, leveraging the insights that are gleaned through Tableau was a very good success story for them, not only for them internally, but for their clients as well. The second customer I'd like to talk briefly about is Cheyenne Capital. Cheyenne Capital is actually took a look at their aggregated positions where they had exposures across different instruments and securities, as well as geographic areas. And once they had that exposure, they could more appropriately implement the right hedging strategy and provide that information back to their clients, so their clients have heavier performance or better performance across different asset classes with the appropriate amount of risk being taken on. And they did it in a very scalable way, moving away from more manual process, but leveraging the Tableau platform to do just what I mentioned, both from an asset management perspective for their clients and a portfolio management perspective for their internal uses. So the next thing I'd like to do is turn it over to Uday as well as Nick, and as they're going to talk a little bit about a couple of scenarios and examples of work that we've done with our customers and in Uday's particular area with User Ready to talk about fund performance scenarios as well as client portfolio management scenarios. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Uday Hegde, and he's going to talk about some of the work that they've done at User Ready. Uday, over to you.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning, everyone. My name is Uday Hegde. I'm the co-founder and CEO of User Ready. We are a New York headquartered firm, a top-tier Tableau partner with core focus in capital markets and finance. In today's demo, I'm going to walk you through an asset performance monitor, which I have built for an asset manager, large wealth management firm. And then during the second demo, I also plan to show you a fund performance analyzer with contribution and attribution analysis. And lastly, I have a little portfolio rebalance tool that I would like to show you as well, all built in Tableau. Just a quick note that the data that you see or the numbers that you see are all have been anonymized to keep the confidentiality. Over to the asset performance monitor demo. My case study 1 is about a global bank with private wealth and asset management services. The bank offers products that are offered in multi-currency, multi-strategy, and multi-country situation scenarios. So it was very important that we also tackled both the clients that are both institutional and high net worth individuals. Typically, I was asked these kind of questions every month. What's our product mix change month over month? What's our asset under management change month over month? What's our top products by AUM and net new assets? What are our significant flows, inflow and outflow? Can we view all these changes by the org hierarchy, so on and so forth? And then more questions. What's our total sourced assets? What's our asset change month over month by geography? You see the drift, right? A lot of questions that are relevant to the business and of keen interest to the senior management, especially in an economic condition that's drifting up and down. It was very crucial that we wanted to know, we had a pulse on the market and the business by understanding our assets, by understanding our clients, by understanding our products better, as close to real time as possible. Also, it was critical that we understand how are we doing against the benchmark that we established as part of our investment guidelines. So in order to answer those questions, what I ended up building is a set of monitors for tracking asset performance and exposure analysis, which I'm going to show you right now. In order to be able to answer those questions, I had to look at the business in a holistic manner, wherein I had to build a series of monitors that really answered those questions in a comprehensive manner. So what I wound up doing is actually build a product monitor which talked all about our products. Our products as of a given point in time, by organizational hierarchy, what's the dollar value of that, what's our asset under management, then what is the change going on, what is the exposure in terms of how much we hold these assets in what geography, so on and so forth. This monitor has a very limited set of toggle or filters where you can take a look at information by a given month. In this example, I'm seeing as of May 2012, what is my overall asset under management, and then I'm looking at by specific division, and right below I could see what are our top 10 products, top 5 products, or top 10 products by net new assets that's come in this month and by the assets that we are managing. Also, the monitor talked about or displayed what's our significant inflow and what's our outflow. Besides that, I could look at the information by region, by organizational hierarchy. For example, we had the top level, BU level, all the way to the individual fund level built as a hierarchy that we could drill into by toggling buttons. By slicing on this filter, what you're seeing is actually my organization, my exposure across the organization. So this talked about all the products that we had, and it showed me what are the top key products that we should be focusing on. This monitor was only possible by blending at least 10 to 12 different data sources. This is where we leveraged Tableau. Besides that, we wanted to also be able to provide this monitor on a touch screen, on an iPad. So by leveraging a feature there, we were able to actually convert that into a tablet format or a regular browser-based default standard format. Once this pattern was established for a monitor, I went ahead and built another one for clients. This perspective is all about clients. Who are our top 10 clients? Who are by assets, by net new assets? Who are our bottom 10 clients by assets and by net new assets? And what are the geographies where we have a significant exposure to? What's our month-over-month sourced asset world looking like? So each monitor was built to tell a data story about the business. Further along, built a monitor for a product performance analysis, wherein I could take a look at funds performance year to date, 1 month, 3 months, 1 year, also against another relative fund or a benchmark over 1 year or 3 years. Right below is the same information presented in a bullet graph. So here you could quickly in a single glance see that, okay, this particular fund is actually beating the benchmark. That's a credit strategy. And how is that doing against a benchmark that's established for it? So on and so forth. So I could very quickly provide in a single view and point to the areas that are critical and important for running the business. The last one, but an important one, also provided a view across geography. What's our exposure to different regions, different areas, different countries in the world? What's our biggest Where is our biggest client? What territory should we be focusing on, so on and so forth. Those kind of questions were answered by building this set of monitors that provided us a holistic picture of the fund asset performance. In summary, we captured performance by products, by clients, and net new assets by client, asset under management by client, and products. My next demo is for a fund-of-fund business. As an analyst working in a fund-of-fund, our biggest area of focus was what is the construct of a given fund, or how does a fund perform over a period of time relative to other funds? Can we create a basket of funds that we can monitor in a portfolio? In order to be able to do that, we constructed this view, what we call trader comparison. What's going on here essentially is we have 6 funds that I'm plotting again on a heat map for a 12-month period. It gives me a view of funds performance over the course of 12 months. And I can quickly glance around, okay, the fund 2 had 0.43% return in June 12. Right below, I plotted funds return against the portfolio weight. I chose March 2009 for a reason. This was the month when we had the big financial crisis going on in the industry. So I was very curious to see how is this funds performing on that particular month, and what is my weightage to a particular fund. What's interesting is that Fund 2, which was 5% weighted into my portfolio, delivered about 2.98%. Now I'm interested in seeing more about this fund. When I click on that, I see Fund 2's performance for the last 8 years. So as I'm seeing this Fund 2, I'm actually looking at a month that is in June 2011 was the worst performing month. What I can see here is that is the month when the fund had the highest drawdown. So essentially it was not the financial crisis peak, which is March, that was the highest drawdown. Instead, it was actually June 2011. When I look at that from a high watermark perspective, I can also take a look at this WAMI, which allows me to see that, okay, if on that given month, when it had the worst performance, my $1,000 would become $894 at a negative return of 11.15%. On this WAMI chart, I have plotted return over the period. So this is how I would be able to quickly glance into the fund's performance over the course. And now I can further look into this fund by looking at the risk attribution of that particular fund. What I'm seeing here is my capital allocation and P&L attribution by sector. I could see that 50% allocation in equities. How about that particular month when I had the worst performance? What was my allocation? My equities allocation was actually down to 25%. My currencies was 20%. Commodities 20%. Also, I could see that on that particular month, my fixed income assets lost about 3%. Whereas currencies had an upswing. That was interesting. With that, I would like to further go into a monitor that I built with some statistics in it. So for the Fund 2, when I plot a histogram of the returns, what I'm seeing here is that about 30% of the time it's returning about -1, and about between 20 to 30% is when I'm seeing 0 to 1% return. So my likelihood of, so when it really severely underperformed, that is when it went to 11% or 12%, well, there's 1% likelihood of that. Further below, I plotted running window calculation of return and standard deviation for a period of 12 months. I can actually see further by reducing my period to, say, half yearly or even a quarterly window and see what happens and what does it look like. I really want to see what happens, what happens, how is the correlation of this fund against the benchmark return. So for example, on this scatter plot, what I'm doing actually is that I'm plotting the fund performance against a set of benchmarks. So what I see here is a positive correlation with benchmark 6, whereas with benchmark 2 there's a negative correlation. These are select benchmark that I thought would be interesting to see against this fund. With these set of monitors, I'm actually able to take a basket and kind of see or create a fund of funds portfolio and see how which fund is interesting and what's going on and what is the statistical correlation against benchmark, and I can see the risk attribution. Those are my key focus areas that I want to see. Next, I want to show you a portfolio simulator that I created. For example, in this case, I know that I have 6 funds in my portfolio, and can I change the weightage of individual fund to see the mix? Can I simulate the returns of that particular combination? So what I created is this little widget where on the left side I have created the weightage of the fund can be altered with the toggle, and when I do that, I can see my returns changing of that particular composite. So with these set of monitors that I can not only enable a particular senior management executive to be able to perform their job better, but also you can see that the data that I'm bringing in was governed through a standardized data source. In order to make this touch screen friendly, so tablet friendly, I basically used a lot of these heat maps in my view so that when I'm on a tablet mode, I can quickly touch the screen and actually get the view that I wanted. Also, I could simulate and see what if I go from landscape to portrait view, what happens. There you go. I'm ready to deliver this on a mobile platform as soon as I plot these views. With that, I would like to come back to my core objectives of building a view like this, which is providing 360-degree view, having access to secure governed data, establishing a repeatable process, achieving time to market, and finally providing a mobility option in everything I build as a dashboard. The key advantages of this approach was a consistency in our process, improved productivity of investigation, choice and flexibility of deployment, platform, data source, and query. With that, I would like to turn over my presentation to Nick. Nick, over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that presentation today. I want to make sure I'm coming through on the audio, so if I could get a confirmation that you can hear me clearly and that I'm sharing my screen.
You are doing both well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Merritt. I'm a systems consultant, and I work for Tableau. I hope that you have found the presentation so far to be very interesting in the context of these types of use cases. Really appreciate user-readies making themselves available to talk about their expertise and their wins with clients and financial services. I'm going to help the conversation along a little bit more from a Tableau technology perspective. So we're going to be looking at some asset and portfolio performance visualizations and use cases, and along the way I'm going to be focusing on the nuts and bolts of the user experience at every step of the way in the Tableau platform. So to get you guys sort of contextualized, I know that there are some of you out there, you've never seen Tableau before. You might be interested in seeing something be built in Tableau from the ground up. How do we, say, connect to data? How do you model data? How do you visualize and analyze the data for your enterprise and for your use cases? We're going to be spending a lot of time in Tableau Desktop talking about that piece of the visual analytics lifecycle. And then we'll also be talking about Tableau Server from the perspective of what you can do to publish and collaborate and iterate and improve on your visual analytics efforts to get more value out of visual analytics. We believe Tableau is an intuitive platform, and I'm going to show you hands-on how we're going to go about working in Tableau to achieve some of these goals in a portfolio and asset management use case. So I won't speak to every little item here on the itinerary, but we're going to cover a lot of really fundamental concepts. So we're really glad that you're here, especially if you're new to Tableau, because what we want is for you to be excited after this session to use Tableau yourself, talk to UserReady about an ambitious use case that you have in mind where you have a time to market consideration and you need to be able to realize value with visual analytics. Excellent. So to the use case, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to bring up a workbook. In Tableau Server. So this is just to familiarize you guys with what we're going to be doing here. We've got a set of analytics around asset variance that are already living right now in Tableau Server. We've designed a dashboard in the service of looking at variance in the trade prices of our portfolio. So we've got some portfolio data. We know what our cost basis is. We know what the variance of the trade price is for all of these assets in the Euronext history. And we've built for ourselves, and this is what we'll be doing hands-on in just a moment, what we built for ourselves is a tool for asking questions around the variance of our assets and looking at things from a geographic perspective, looking at things from a historical perspective. We're going to be using all kinds of Tableau tools to further our analysis. But as you can see, there's a lot of interactivity, right? When I'm working with Tableau dashboards, there's a lot that you get out of the box whenever you're working with a Tableau visualization. So I focus on a particular visualization and a dashboard, as you can see here. I focus on one asset, and my timeline drills down for me immediately. And I get a sense of all of the key metrics that may be associated with the visualization that I'm interacting with. Now, when it comes to getting started, what I've got here is our goals. We're going to create a story. It's going to be based on a dashboard. That dashboard contains some visualizations, but we're going to get started with a sandbox viz. And before we create our first viz, we're going to connect to data. You can see that here in this layout, we already actually are connected to data in a few different ways. All three of these data sources that you see here on the left-hand side in the data pane are actually Tableau server data sources. So that's a fantastic piece of value that you may not know about if you've only ever used Tableau Desktop or perhaps been exposed to products like Tableau Reader. Tableau Server has a way of caring for your data, giving you a place to put it. It can be the metadata that you require in order to connect to a live database. From a connectivity perspective, we connect to about 50 different flavors of data, RDBMS, big data, cubes. This is all supported by way of ODBC drivers. We can also connect via web services as well to your enterprise data. But here I've taken that data and I've already modeled it into Tableau Server, and so I actually, whenever I want to just access that data, I say I want to connect to a Tableau server, and here's all the data that's living on my Tableau server. So it's been very useful for us to have this data in a place where someone else who knows how to manage it, caring for it on our behalf. What if I had a local file? And that's the one thing I'd like to show you in terms of getting started. If you're working in Tableau Desktop and you wanted to connect, say, to a local file, what if you had your portfolio asset positions in an Excel workbook? What would that look like? What would that feel like if you weren't connecting to Tableau Server? Well, when you're connecting to a local file, you can see, you get a view. In this case, I'm connecting to Excel. Tableau thinks of it like a database, like it has tables inside of it, and every sheet is essentially a table. Down here, you can see where all the sheets are laid out, and I can say, well, if I want to promote my positions into the view, when I come over here and I start to create visualizations and I look at maybe all my asset holdings broken out by asset name. This is the data that we just connected to locally. I come back here to the data source. What if my data wasn't in such good shape? What if it needed to be joined, for example? Because here I had my assets and I had my holdings, and in another table, I had the purchase price per share and the date of the purchase. That's something that you can do quickly and easily in Tableau. Just pulling one by a drag and drop operation out next to the other will create a join. You can see based on the data types that I'm working with the asset names in each table. So I'm joining on that. I'm going to pull in by a left join. What if I had two tables that I wanted to stack on top of each other? Because they were structurally the same, but I got them in different periods. That's something we support by way of union. So rather than dragging it next to the other table, I drag it right underneath the other table, and I've stacked them on top of each other. These are the tools that I'm talking about when we talk about the workflow when you're getting started. You're connecting, you're modeling. You can do it to local files. You can do it with Tableau server data sources. You can do it with live database connections, and that's what we're getting started with. So back here, let's create our first visualization, actually our second visualization. But I'm going to go ahead and keep working with the Tableau server data, and let me explain why. You can see here that when I'm connecting to this local file, here's those asset positions just in Excel, right? I get the information separated for me into the categorical values and the continuous values, the dimensions and the measures, my dates, my strings, my booleans, they're my dimensions. My measures are my numbers, the metrics, the things that matter. Here, I'm looking at the same asset positions data, but it's the Tableau server version of the data source, right? And so I actually have a portfolio cost basis calculation that's associated with the data source. It's a calculated field. Of course, Tableau supports calculated fields. You can see I'm just taking one measure and multiplying it by another. I'm taking my holdings, I'm multiplying them by the purchase price per share on the date of the purchase. But that calculation lives with the data source. And since I went to Tableau server to get my data source rather than connecting to a raw file, I benefited from the work that someone else had done on my behalf. And in this case, if I clear this view, we'll go ahead and close this connection. And we'll start working with our asset positions from a cost basis perspective. Don't need my copy. please. There's my cost basis, breaking it out by asset name. You see I did that with a couple of double clicks. I could also drag and drop. Tableau keeps you in the flow. We want you to stay in the flow. And here is the next interesting dilemma. And I have this problem as an investment manager. I have data that's personal to a particular client relationship. I have data that's specific to a fund. And then I have all of this market data that I want to be able to reference. And so in addition to this asset position data, what I've also got here in terms of the data sources that are here on my Tableau server is I have some Euronext history. And this Euronext history is actually pretty massive. Let's go ahead and just confirm that. I'll create this really quickly here so you can see. This is our Euronext data source, right? And like with every Tableau data source, I can see how many records are actually inside of it. Goodness, that's 220 million records. Can Tableau do that? Yes, it can. When we come back here and look at our asset positions, not only can I have these two data sources living alongside one another, I can also create a relationship for them visually through what we call in Tableau data blending. So I have assets here in my position data, and I have the Euronext history. What if I was interested in the trade, or rather the price variance at the asset level? How easy would it be for me to see, maybe indicated by color, what the variance is for those trade prices based on this other data source? Okay, so I right-clicked and dragged. You can left-click and drag. It'll do the default here. I'm looking for a particular aggregation, not the default, which in this case would be sum. I'm looking for variance. When I make that right-click and drag, I get all the options I could possibly have for working with a continuous measure that I want to use as the basis for my color. And there's my variance. And now Tableau is going to start managing the conversation between my local Excel data, or my positions data, and that 200 million row reference data set, right? So here's the gradient that's been created. Let's go ahead and edit this gradient just a little bit. I've got one I really like. Comes out in the box. And maybe if I make a filter out of this, forgive me, I'm just going to back up one step here. First thing I wanted to do there, take my trade price variance, from my large data set, break that out by asset name. Going to be doing all that number crunching against 200 million rows of data. That's Tableau server working on my behalf. You see that it takes maybe a second or two in order to do this, but think about how this might not be possible on the laptop of a wealth manager who doesn't have room for what is potentially gigabytes of data. So in this case, this is a calculation that Tableau server is going to be doing for us based on an in-memory, what we call a data extract. And now when it's done crunching this information, it's going to show us the breakdown from a variance perspective. And we're going to be able to take that visualization, and we're going to be able to compare it to the positions data. Because what we really want to be able to take into consideration here is the price variance relative to the cost basis that we know we can get from that asset positioning data. So I'll come in and show you the finished example here. We have a high variance asset view. We've taken all of those assets. We've taken the cost basis as a calculation from our asset positions data, and that's the basis for our color here, right? The variance of the trade price there is indicated on a distribution, and you can see that this is a visualization that we've also can use in various ways. When I hover over it, you can see I get a ranking of the price variance. That's because I'm using a table calculation in order to be able to show that variance, in order to be able to calculate it relative to the other assets in the view. You can see that table calculations are going to be useful to us in other visualizations as well. But in this case, I'm using a rank, and I'm comparing all of the assets in the view so I can make that assessment. One moment. Apologies. Let me go ahead and drill back into my price variance analysis. And let's talk about the other components of the dashboard that we have here. So here in our timeline, we're using that Euronext data. It's living on our Tableau server, and we've arranged it in terms of a few key metrics. Of course, we want to think about the average stock price. We want to think about the moving average of that stock price. We want to take a couple of other key metrics into consideration, like the total volume of shares traded. We want to take also just the total number of trades into consideration. And these are 4 different metrics, but as you can see here, what we've been able to do is visualize them all in a single context, right? So we have a couple of trend lines that are showing that average trade price and that moving average trade price. Here you can see that this is another example of a table calculation. In this case, we're using the moving average trade price. And it's something that you can actually promote into a calculated field. So when I create a calculated field, maybe that's based on a couple of table calculation functions, I can just drag it and drop it over into the measures pane and enhance my data model in order to be able to have a sort of a calculation that I can use on a repeated basis. I've also configured the measures in this view using what we call dual axis. So you may have been wondering, if you're somewhat new to Tableau and you've only tried a couple of visualizations, how do you do that? It's just something that you can configure there. And maybe I'd also be interested in just having the opportunity to work within a particular viz sheet and just have kind of a sandbox experience. So if I'm new to Tableau Desktop, I can create visualizations using the tools that are available over in the marks card, the filters card, my columns and my rows shelf, but I can also use what's called show me. So when show me is visible, what you see is a breakdown of all of the different ways that your data can be visualized. So maybe you've gotten to the point where I'm breaking out my assets here. I can see what the cost basis is for those assets indicated by the size here in my heat map and tree map. But what if I wanted to be able to see this as another type of visualization? It's just with a click of a button and I'm able to look at this from a box plot perspective. And now I'm breaking down my portfolio cost basis and my asset variance, and I can see what role France is playing in my overall portfolio with respect to the variance. Coming back over here to my dashboard, right? That's also indicated by the map that we've created here. You can see that this map is rendering variance at the country level for all of the assets inside of that particular issuing country. And again, here what I have, if I think about it from the perspective of the viz that I need to create in order to visualize this, this is something that's very, very straightforward, right? Here we have basically country information, and we've promoted it into the view with a level of detail. We also have the ability to group that information. So let's create a duplicate of this visualization really quickly, and let me show you what it looks like if I have taken countries and grouped them. What you'll notice is that this is something that we released in Tableau 10. I've taken the polygon for Great Britain and the polygon for France, and I've been able to group them visually into a single unit in my map. So that's something that you can do. You have an option when you're working within Tableau 10, and I hope many of you have experienced Tableau 10 already. It was released initially in August of last year, and we introduced a number of innovations that I hope you're already having the chance to take advantage of, but if not, know that that ability to do custom territories is something that you've been able to do in Tableau 10. So looking at things again from the perspective of how we put this information together, right? If we take our visualizations, such as our high variance assets, our geographic view, and our timeline, and we arrange them in a desktop, what we can then do is create relationships of interactivity. So I have the dashboard view here, and what I'm going to be able to do is create relationships such that I can mark my assets, and I can filter down in my timeline to see what the history was for that particular asset. Notice that nothing changed in my map, right? The relationships that exist between different visualizations are really yours to define. So as a matter of fact, from my geo view, when I focus just on a particular geography, then I get a drill down in my timeline, and I get a drill down in my high variance assets. But if I'm drilling in just from the assets, that's something that's configured only to impact the timeline. These dashboards are very powerful in that regard, and you can think about them as a way of answering any question that comes along. And that's really the goal, is to be able to service the ad hoc data discovery needs of the portfolio manager in researching the performance of their portfolio. And in order to be able to optimize, you want to be able to share that information. And so what I've transitioned to now is a view from Tableau Server, once again. And so there's our dashboard. This is the dashboard that we've been looking at, the dashboard that we created together. And if I like, as a Tableau Server user, I can actually, in addition to interacting with it, also enable a web editing view. And web editing is something that is catching on fast with our Tableau Server end users. We've had this great experience inside of Tableau Desktop, and really Tableau Desktop is the first and foremost vehicle for designing data models, designing visual analytics for widespread usage within your department or your organization. We also have the capability that we've been putting into Tableau Server for an end user to be able to interact with the data that they can get in a visualization, in a workbook from Tableau Server itself, and to be able to navigate and enhance and manipulate just like a Tableau Desktop user would. And you can see the view that I have here. If I wanted to be able to make a change to this visualization, it's something that I could do right through a browser. So now we've made it to the other end of the platform, right? And from the perspective of how this content is organized, you can see that I also have other tools inside of Tableau. Maybe I have someone in my visual analytics audience who doesn't want to be bothered with a dashboard. They don't want to be told, explore. They just want to be apprised of the things that they need to be focused on. So from the perspective of supporting that, we do a few different things in Tableau Server, and I want to talk about all of them. The first thing is we use stories. So in addition to the visualizations that you can create and the dashboards that you can compose from various visualizations, we also have the ability to support a guided analysis or a narrative-driven analysis using what we call stories. And what I've got here is an example, a very simple example of a story. And as I navigate, as you can see, from one step to the next in my story, I can see a change of focus, right? In this case, I'm not saying to my end user, go and find the insight. I'm saying, here's the insight. And I've laid it out for you. And I've put it into a series of visualizations that will help you see, in this case for Valorec, that this is something that we may want to think about as managing for, even though it's not necessarily a big portion of our portfolio. This is a conversation that could be extended, right, to the other assets in the portfolio. We can see, based on the way that this visualization is laying things out, very easily what's above standard deviation in each of our measure areas from a cost basis or an asset variance perspective. We might have questions about LVMH. We might have questions about Christian Dior. We certainly might have questions about Hermes, and that's a follow-up conversation. But of course, what Tableau Server will enable you to do is change the focus of the conversation interactively using this wide variety of tools. But let's come back for a moment and talk about the other tools that you can use from the perspective of a Tableau server user with respect to having a conversation with Tableau server that you don't have to manage so proactively. Maybe I know every single time I come into this view that this is my priority view. What this means is that when I make this my default, every time I open this page, this is going to be the view that's made available to me. In addition to being able to define custom views, right? Switch to Valorec, create a view based on Valorec. I may also want to create a subscription for myself to this workbook. So someone else has gone through the effort of putting together this dashboard for me, and I want to be able to get the latest information weekday mornings. This will send me an email. I can add others to this subscription. Perhaps I want my boss to attend. And this is just one of the ways that you can have content be proliferated around your department or around your group very quickly and easily. The server's going to take care of it for you. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to get that email. It's going to have an image of this dashboard. I'm going to be able to click on it in a link. And that's part of the value that you have in Tableau Server, again, from a collaboration perspective. So I realize we're coming up on maybe 5 of the hour, and I want to pause there. I hope that this has been enlightening for you. I realize we've covered quite a number of topics, so I appreciate your interest and your attention. I do want to say just a couple more things. There is an iterative process to working with Tableau. Hopefully what you've seen is indicative of the life cycle for a Tableau use case. You have beginnings in Tableau Desktop. They can leverage the effort of data curators and modelers who have published their work to Tableau Server. You create visualizations, dashboards, you craft them into stories, and this is all encompassing in one platform. So aside from the nuts and bolts, which I hope you appreciated having the chance to experience, I hope you'll see how easy it is to get started in Tableau. And it's been a great pleasure to share this use case with you and to familiarize you, get you a little bit more intimate with Tableau as a platform. Thanks very much, and I'll turn it back over to you, Kim.
Great. Thank you. So with that, we'll open it up for Q&A. So if you do have any questions, go ahead and submit them, and we will answer as many as we can before we run out of time here in a few minutes. So we have had a lot of questions about the webinar series. The series of webinars, is it for beginners of Tableau? And I guess, Nick, maybe you could start answering that question for us and talk about the overall audience. My personal opinion is I think it applies to all levels of users, and I think that's the beauty of Tableau. But Nick, do you want to expand on that?
Well, I guess I would like to be able to say yes in the sense that we're trying to make sure that if you're interested in use cases like the ones Uday was talking about, if you're interested in workflows for data and visual analysis that are like the one I demonstrated, then we certainly want you to feel welcome. And in that sense, if you're a beginner, we're very glad you're here, and we hope that you're going to be interested in working with Tableau Desktop more. Now, if you're asking that from the perspective of maybe a more intermediate or advanced user, we certainly do have all kinds of great content that we deliver at the account level and through your client relationship manager when it comes to a specific use case or a specific set of Tableau goals. So please feel free to let us know what interests you, and we'll try to make that part of our ongoing focus for the more intermediate and advanced user.
Absolutely. And let me also say, I think that what we're trying to get across in this webinar series is there are some great stories out there that our customers have. Stories that not all of them can they be public, but they're stories about how to drive business value. Where are organizations seeing the business impact of the implementation of Tableau? And that's really where we are seeing in this webinar series 3 areas: the fraud, the credit risk, the asset portfolio management theme, because those are some areas of low-hanging fruit where most organizations are doing something and seeing a lot of value. So we want to be able to share those learned lessons with all of you so that you can take that back to your organization and figure out if there's a better way to perhaps be handling that area within your organization. Are there any other questions? I have seen several. The whole series is being recorded. You will receive, for those who registered, regardless if you attended, you will be getting all of the links very soon here, now that the series has concluded. So you'll be able to listen on replay. If there are no other questions at this point, we certainly thank you for your time. Thank you so much, Uday, for joining us. We truly do value the partnership we have with UserReady. They are out there doing some really great things with Tableau in combination with their professional services in order to really drive some value in financial services. So thank you, Uday, very much for being with us today. Thank you, Nick, and we hope to see you all again soon on our next webinar.